Good news that they're now President and Secretary of State. It could have been the opposite. He could have been Secretary. She could have been President. And what became apparent during the campaign was Hillary and Barack had become the conduits to which the transformation, redemptive, maturing process was taking place. We would not have known it had they not tried for the breakthrough. And people were ready, and therefore we accept the progress. But it's been a great risk for the right to vote. Viola Luizzo, Italian-American mother, was called nigger lover. Her brains were blown out point blank range. Serena Goodman Turner, 2 Jews and a black were killed about the right to vote. Meg Evers was killed about the right to vote. Dr. King killed in part because he said we should not be at war in Vietnam. And yet the blood of those martyrs has fertilized the soil that we now operate from. I've been asked often, why was I crying the night of the election? One, because it was a joyous moment. It was like a big moment. But in that same park, 40 years ago, in '68, we were demonstrating to end the war in Vietnam. We were being beat by police and tear gassed by the police and jailed, was saying, end the war in Vietnam. Now, on that night, the police in the same park were all jammed up and down, embracing an African-American president whose campaign was end the war in Iraq. We've gone from glorifying a war in Vietnam to saying this preemptive invasion, occupation does not make sense to us. We are better than that now. We grew from our reaction to the Vietnam War as a test of our patriotism to the war in Iraq as a test of our intelligence. And we determined that this did not make sense to us. So one finally sees that growth taking place. And so it was a joy of that moment, but then it was also the journey, because getting there was a difficult struggle. And getting to the next stage would be a difficult struggle. But I have no doubt that we will make our world better. We will not have war in Southeast Asia. Again, we'll have trading partners. We have the capacity, technologically, to wipe out hunger without wiping out the hungry. To create for all people drinkable water and affordable health care. And that, to be worthy of our time, we must do that. Thank you guys very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So on behalf of the NIST International School of Thailand and the audience today, I would like to say thank you to Reverend Jackson for being here today and giving us this talk. As a history student, it's an honor to be in the presence of someone who has been in the events that I've studied and read about. I was particularly moved by the Reverend's points about what our generation must do, about hope over dope. The points that he made us repeat will always stay with me forever. And I believe it really brings home the points about choice and about dreaming beyond our predicament, that as the generation of today, the generation of right now, we must strive to do. And here we have an example of someone who has really made a difference in the world we live in today. So thank you.
Since you raised that, I know this may not be as applicable to you, but I often ask these questions to our youth at home. How many of you know somebody in your age group who is dead because of drugs? Stan. You know somebody who's dead because of drugs. You know somebody who's dead because of drugs. Be seated. You know someone who is in jail because of drugs, Stan. You know somebody who's in jail because of drugs in your age group. Be seated. You know someone who has tried drugs at your school. Someone who has tried drugs. You know somebody who has brought a gun or a knife to school, Stan. You know somebody whose mother gone that knife to school, stand. Be seated. You know somebody in your age group who has considered committing suicide, stand. There's such a correlation between the access and surrender to drugs and death, drugs and jail, guns and suicide, guns and massacre, and then in the end, give up because suicide and homicide are Siamese twins. Those who are willing to die are willing to take people with them. And that's why you're challenged. You know, it's almost, I'm sure there are some teachers here who are surprised at the response, right? Say amen, teachers. But that's what we really are, and you must not surrender to the demons of drugs and violence. You must give peace within your own soul a chance. I got to go now, guys. He came out of a tradition of people who spoke well because he was a minister, and so was his father's friends. So often oration comes out of a given tradition, but there's no oration that is more powerful than that which is authentic or genuine. It may not be a certain tone or a certain rhythm, but when you speak, if it's genuine and matters, people can feel and hear the sound of the genuine in your voice. So he came out of that tradition and used his talents to help inspire people to bring down barriers. Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am. She saw the Tammy Smiley show and never talks about the post-racial society. We are not post-racial. Nor should we want to be post-racial. We want to be post-racist. Post-using race as a basis for putting somebody else down or locking them out. We should affirm our race, our gender. Well, because some people are escaping reality. That's what they mean. They don't really know what they mean. One of the expressions on the American currency is e pluribus unum. Of the many, we're one. So we can integrate and not assimilate. We can come from Asia or Africa or Australia, the case may be. We can integrate into the basic tenets of the culture without assimilating our culture, our background, our religion, our songs, our art. Because what makes us beautiful is the variety we bring from our experiences. So we need not bleach out our experiences. If I can use a metaphor of sorts, a vegetable soup. And there's a tomato base. And in that soup may be some different meats and corn and the like. When it gets real hot, from each fruit or each vegetable gets some flavor. You don't destroy it, you just give up some flavor for the common good. So our numerators may be different, but our numerators may be different. Our denominator must be the same. If I live in Thailand, whether I'm Thai or Buddhist, a Muslim, a Christian, a Jewish. Those are the particulars of my numerator. My denominator is this land, is our land. We must share our talents and make the land where we live a great land. That's how we fit. We want to be post-racist, not post-racial. And do not make racial and racist as the same term, because they are not.
A question from the back here.
If you come, I can't turn to Lucy. If you come, why should you come to America and not be a Thai? To be American. Why should you come to America and not be Buddhist? Does that mean that you're going to become a Baptist? Or just don't go to religious service at all? It does not mean that. And so some people use their language to not know really what they're so anxious to get beyond racial fears until they become ridiculous.
Hi, my name is Suman from 6AR.
I didn't hear you.
I am Suman Rowe from 6AR. How is Rainbow Push working towards international peace?
I think it is that by convincing each other that each of us is worthy to live, and neither of us should die to satisfy the lust of the other. And so we should live together and not kill each other. And our experience in America, I traveled to share some of our experience overcoming various odds. If you plant two seeds in the ground of equal strength, you put a wall between them. You water both seeds. One will grow tall and have strong stems and multiple fruits. And one will be short and stunted and will not grow. It does not mean that the taller one was better. It had photosynthesis. It had access to the sunshine. But when the walls come down, we can all grow and share and have multiples of fruit. When I was in Malaysia a few days ago, and I think that not long ago, it was basically an agricultural society. One of the number one export of microchips to America is Malaysia. When I was coming over here, someone said, "Why are you going to Malaysia? Way over yonder." I said, that plasma TV set you have, that's Malaysia. That laptop you have, either in Malaysia or Taiwan, that's what it is. All the electronic gadgetry in your car or in your airplane, that's Malaysia. So we, at our best, we need each other. Those who are farmers and hewers of wood or water and choppers of wood 50 years ago are now supplying the world with what the world needs. And so that is a way of creating peace. Say people, repeat people, who trade together, don't fight each other. People who trade together, respect each other, and meet each other. People with whom you trade, people you learn respect, you don't fight. You learn to build upon skills and not destroy upon lust. That's the key to peace, really. You don't kill people that you respect, that you care for. And therefore, it was astonishing. I've mentioned several times since I've been here, people who turn on that plasma television or use that TV surfer. That is the headquarters of Chicago, but it's made in Malaysia. You pick up that cell telephone, it's made here. You get in the airplane, it's put on your seatbelt. The seatbelt may be made in Detroit, but all the gadgets in the cockpit are made here. So when we unleash our talents, we become protective of each other, and we each have talents to contribute. 2 more, I got to go. Yes, ma'am?
Because of the state America was in when you were our age, did you believe that you would see America grow as much as it has to have a black president and to achieve so much more equality in daily life when you were our age?
How old are you?
17.
I can't remember that far back. I have no idea what life was like at 17. Well, it is fair to say that I have seen in my lifetime America grow and mature in this direction. I did not know when nor who, but I knew it was possible. Because in 50 years, we have learned to live together. And so when law changes, behavior changes, attitudes change, culture change, you have the fruits of new law, new behavior, new culture, new attitudes. Now what I mean by this, Dr. King would say, people say something like, if we integrate the buses, you mean a white person sitting down who just came from work from the office wearing a suit and tie, and some black person who has been a janitor all day can sit beside that person? Dr. King says, yes. Suppose the white person is not going to sit next to a black person when he has the freedom to get up or the right to stay there. Because now it would be illegal to tell the black person to get up. So unless you want to stand up or walk, you sit beside that person. You may learn that sitting beside that person does not alter the timing of the bus. That person may take deodorant just as you do. You may strike up a conversation and find that you have something in common. So when the law changes and you cannot violate people by race, then your behavior begins to change, then your attitude changes, then your culture changes. So what's happened in America in the last 50 years, the Supreme Court made legal segregation illegal in 1954. So we no longer have the right to by race deny or by extension by gender. The Montgomery bus boycott was designed to challenge and validate that law. The law began to change. And as the law evolved, today, we as African Americans, whites, Latinos, Jews, Buddhists, Hindu, and the like, more of us go to school together. More of us are classmates and roommates and intermarry and play ball together and manufacture together. We're learning, so we survived apart. We're learning to live together. So President Barack Obama was in the White House in Washington. Most of his classmates, most of the people who were serving him, were his classmates or teammates on a basketball team. People he knew. He and Arne Darkin both went to Harvard. Arne's great basketball player. They played a lot of ball together. He developed a conference on with Arne, and so Arne is head of education. He's president. One of his professors, Dr. Summers, is now his economic advisor because they learn. So I've seen America grow in this direction. I said this part and I close. August 28, 1955, it's a very key date. Emmett Till, a young black, was lynched. And it was state sanctioned in that they did not pursue those who did the lynching. His body was riddled with bullets, put in the bottom of a river, because they say he whistled at a white girl, and for that he was killed. That was one state, but that was America. That, whatever your ethnicity may be, you can dream beyond your predicament. You can imagine beyond your predicament. You can hope beyond your predicament. All of us have some predicament, some life's challenge, some fear we choose not to share. Do we surrender to our fears? Do we retreat because of them, or do we go forward by our hopes and dream and not backwards by our fears? John, in that predicament, chose to dream of a new heaven and a new earth beyond his predicament. We hear a lot about Dr. King's dream in Washington in 1963. To put it in context, it was not so much the dream that was the theme of that address. African Americans have been in slavery for 246 years, legal slavery. We were bought and sold as stock on the exchange. We were the original stock on the stock exchange. We were the original base of international trade, African slave trade. After 246 years, it was ruled to be illegal. Between Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th Amendment, it was ruled to be illegal. But then while the law changed, the culture did not change, and therefore there was a kickback, a reaction to that noble effort to abolish slavery. And so for another 100 years, the day Dr. King gave that speech in Washington, from Florida, if you look at the map, across to Texas, up to Maryland, blacks and Latinos couldn't use a single public toilet lest we be arrested. We couldn't go to the movie theater in the front door. Our money was counterfeited. We could not buy ice cream at the ice cream store at Howard Johnson. We could not rent a room at the Holiday Inn. Black soldiers, American soldiers with flags on it. Dr. King finished high school at 15. His first debate at age 14 was on the U.S. Constitution at 14. He finished college at 19. He got a seminary degree at 22. His PhD at 26. He was a global leader. When young people come alive and begin to dream and choose hope over dope and life over death and futures over funerals, you have this awesome power to determine the course of our world. The world you inherit is like putty. You can determine the face you put on your world. The more I've walked the streets of the nations of this region in the last few days, it's more apparent to me than ever before that in this global world, we've been blessed to have President Barack Hussein Obama as our president, but an inspiration beyond our boundaries to the world. He is a young man born of an African father and a white American mother. That combination would have invited lynching in many parts of our country 45 years ago. And that was embraced. Raised in his formative years in Indonesia, in Southeast Asia. He went to school like this, where he was able to go to school with people who were Islamic or Buddhist or Christian or Jew, as the case may have been. So he developed a comfort zone in multiracial, multicultural, multireligious settings. He did not see Islamists in stereotypical terms, or Jews, or whites or blacks, as the case may have been. He learned in his formative years to see people. He went to Hawaii and spent time there. And so he has this global vision. Many leaders see the world through a keyhole, not through a door. In that keyhole, they can only get one race, one group in their eye, but those who have the bigger vision can make room for all of us under one big tent. And maybe a key into his genius is being developed in an environment that made room for all people. Now we've globalized technology. Our technology cannot outdistance our sense of morality, our sense of justice. What does it matter the scripture raises if we gain the world and lose our souls? Suppose we can text messages around the world in an instant, or we can use YouTube or some magical technological formula for an instant, and then will not feed the hungry, or clothe the naked, or make room for all of the people to grow and develop. I just met with your Prime Minister a few moments ago before coming here. As far as your real agenda for the people, so we really want to get cash for the elderly and education for all of the children. If we can have stability and export import, we can grow in that direction. I appeal to him, let that message, cash for the elderly, say our character, repeat, our character is measured by how we treat the poor in the pit of life. Our character is measured by how we treat the poor in the pit of life, by how we treat the young in the morning of life, by how we treat the elderly in the sunset of life. Our character is measured by how we treat the young in the morning of life, by how we treat the poor in the pit of life, by how we treat the elderly in the sunset of our lives. Our religions may be different. Our ethnicities may be different. Our cultures may be different. But there is a bottom line. Beyond culture, beyond race, beyond gender, beyond religion, is how we treat the poor in the pit of life, by how we treat the young in the sunset of life, by how we treat the elderly in the sunset of life. Our generation must study war no more. Our generation must learn to live together. Our generation must not merely globalize technology. Our generation must globalize drinkable water, a plan to cure AIDS. Our generation must globalize access to capital, industry, technology, workers' rights, women's rights, children's rights, environmental security. Our generation can make the world better. This world is our burden. This world is our burden. Upon our shoulders will usher in a new generation and make our generation a worthy generation. Thank you very much. Up on your feet, up on your feet, on your feet, on your feet. You guys act too quiet for me. But something we used to do this at home many years ago after Dr. King was killed. I want you guys to go through this little rally with me. He was killed then. There was always this despair. Dr. King killed in April. Robert Kennedy killed in June. The sense that we were lost and did not know what to do nor where to go. When he was killed, we were on our way to a place called Resurrection City, a little makeshift city in the capital, in Washington, to put focus on the Poor People's Campaign, those who malnourished and have health care and have health insurance and the like. So I was asked to be mayor of that city. And so one morning, it was raining, and someone had died. And I got on the back of a truck, and they were looking up to me for leadership. I had no money to give them. I had no fame to give them. I had no ticket to get them to go back home on the bus, as the case may have been. And I remember a book I'd read some years ago called Jesus and the Disinherited, that when our backs, our backs are against the wall, when our backs are against the wall, and we're reduced to our irreducible essence, we still matter. We're somebody. Now, somebody said to them, repeat, and you say, I am. Like you say, I am. Louder, I am. Somebody. Respect me. Protect me. Never neglect me. I am somebody. Stop the violence. Save the children. Stop the violence. Save the children. Down with dope. Up with hope. Down with dope. Up with hope. Study war. No more. Study war. No more. Study war. No more. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Let me hear you scream. Well, I'll try to take, right. Hey, Prince. So, now, let me ask a question or two or three, then we have another meeting today and on back to Chicago tonight. But I have enjoyed this mission in this region of the world and to see how the world is growing and getting better. It was not long ago that we were protesting an unjust, unnecessary war in Vietnam. Not long ago that we were bombing Japan, that we were at war. Here we are today as trading partners and not warring adversaries. And that's the right direction. See, today we are trading partners, not warring adversaries. We will never bomb each other again. We will build and grow together, not bomb and destroy. We will never declare war on each other again. That's your generation's challenge. Question or two. Yes, sir.
Reverend Jackson, in your experience with Dr. Martin Luther King, what do you think were the essential skills that he had that made him such a good leader and such a good motivator in a cause that was toiling and took so much despair?
One, he had a condition, a predicament he had to address. All of us find in our lifetime some barrier that should come down. It's ruled up by time and effort. For him, that barrier were walls based upon race, racial segregation, and racial indignity, and that became his mission, tear down that wall. For some others, that wall may be gender discrimination, or it may be religious discrimination, or it may be economic exploitation, or it may be colonialism. But there are these walls in our lives, and we must use our resources to bring those walls down. And so he was in Montgomery, Alabama. Rosa Parks was arrested. He had the choice to dismiss it because he had a car. He didn't have to worry about a woman riding a bus. He chose to engage in that struggle because dignity transcended his own personal options. You follow me? But when the opportunity to serve knocked on his door, he was prepared. He was finishing up his PhD. I repeat again, he finished high school at 15, college at 19, seminary at 22, a PhD at 26. So he was prepared to serve.
Your Highness, Prince Alfred of Liechtenstein, Reverend Jesse Jackson, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, fellow students, I'd like to thank you for attending such an auspicious and honorable occasion for our school. I grew up in Virginia, on the outskirts of my country's capital, Washington, D.C., and completed elementary school there. In American public schools, the 5th and 6th grade social studies classes are devoted to recent American history, although we've only been around for 200 years, and ended with the Civil Rights Movement. It was in this small classroom, filled with 30 other kids from various ethnic backgrounds, when we first heard their names: Harriet Tubman, John Brown, Frederick Douglass, Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., and of course, Reverend Jesse Jackson. All leaders of the Civil Rights Movement who marched, fought, called, and demanded for change and equality. Although slavery had been abolished almost a century earlier, segregation between blacks and whites was apparent in everyday life. All across the nation, there were different drinking fountains, separate bathrooms, and segregated schools. King's peaceful message of justice and equality questioned and demanded for the end of racial discrimination. As he so famously said, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today." Jesse Jackson is an American hero and leader who inspires millions by his pursuit of freedom for all. Even from a young age, I have been deeply moved by his peaceful quest for freedom and equality that was promised to every American in the Declaration of Independence. In a time of racism and sexism, our founding fathers declared on July 4th, 1776, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Finally, on July 2nd, 1964, a Civil Rights Act was passed. It outlawed racial segregation in schools, public places, and employment. Although this was a huge step forward in their struggle for freedom and justice, there was still a great deal of racial discrimination that went overlooked, and often authorities would look the other way. Even today, in a more modern, liberal, and democratic society, there is still a lot of hatred and violence in the nation that I call my home. In the early 1970s, Reverend Jesse Jackson formed the Rainbow Push organization with its goals and mission to pursue social justice, civil rights, and political activism. Today, Reverend Jackson has graciously accepted to talk to us about their achievements in raising global awareness of social equality. However, the last time I saw Reverend Jackson was on CNN on the television screens downstairs. A small group of students assembled to watch the votes be counted for the historical presidential election last fall. On November 4th, 2008, Barack Hussein Obama was elected to be the 44th president and the first African-American president of the United States. I'm slightly embarrassed to admit that I did cry. Okay, maybe more like weep. But I am proud to say that it did mean that much to me. At such a pivotal point in American history, you can see why I'm so excited to hear Mr. Jackson speak today. Thanks to Reverend Jackson's lifelong dedication to social justice and the ending of racial discrimination, fighting for these basic and innate rights of freedom, I am proud to say that my country has come so far and that finally we can truly call ourselves the United States of America. So without any further delay, it would be my honor to introduce a true American hero, Mr. Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson. Thank you. I'm from Virginia. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. Now, if we're going to have this session together, you cannot sit there quiet. You must put your hands together. Put your hands together. If you love freedom, put your hands together. You want to end war, put your hands together. Now let me hear you scream. It is a joy to share these few moments with you today. We have been in this region now for about a week, in Malaysia and now in Thailand, as we try to work to build bridges between nations within Southeast Asia, between peoples within this region, and people around our world. We live in a one world community, sometimes separated by language, but connected by message. Whatever the language may be, we want to have access to drinkable water and health care and decent wages, and be free of violence, and have a chance to become educated and develop our minds in our formative years. And so it is a joy to be with you here on this bridge building mission as we tear down walls and build bridges. Dr. King, Martin Luther King Jr. would be happy today to be in this room. You look like a little United Nations. Here you are, a multiracial, multicultural, many-language setting, doing an awesome and difficult thing. It is tough to survive apart. It's tough to survive the elements. It's tough to survive. But you have a greater mission than surviving apart. You must now learn to live together. And that really means going from various forms of racial, cultural, political battlegrounds to some kind of shared economic common ground where we all share the resources and live with security, and then on to moral higher ground. There's room in this one big tent for all of us. There are some basic lessons I want to share with you in this very short period of time. One is that life is full of choices and consequences. Say life. Repeat, life is full of choices and consequences. I must live the consequence of the choice I make. Therefore, I must not self-degrade. I must not self-destruct. I must not do violence to others, lest I invite violence unto myself. We choose to live together as brothers and sisters and not die apart as fools. Red and yellow, brown, black, and white, we're all precious in the Creator's sight. Everybody is somebody. Everybody is somebody. The only justification for looking down on someone, the only justification for looking down on someone is that you're going to stop and pick them up. Put your hands together. Put your hands together. It is easier to die than to live. When people surrender, they just simply die. They withdraw their efforts, withdraw their spirit. And some commit quick and others long-term suicide. They withdraw. They refuse to fight back. They refuse to make life better. It is easier to die than to live. It is easier to fight than to think. You need to use your fists than your mind. They're easier to use missiles than your mind. It's easier to stop and give up than to struggle. It's easier to tear down than to build up. Easier to hate and be indifferent. All you have to do is be ignorant and be afraid. Say it is easier to hate and be afraid. Easier to hate, be afraid, and indifference than to have courage and love and live together. Our mission is to live together, tear down walls, and build bridges. You are global leaders. An overused statement is that you are our future. But you are not just our future. You are our right now. You're not just our tomorrow. You are our today. But you do affect the world now. The clothes you choose to wear affects business now. For you choose a route of violence and drugs, a hope and nonviolence determines how the world operates now. But you choose to say yes to peace and no to war affects us right now. Your capacity to embrace people who has a religion different than your own affects our right now. You must have in this new world global consciousness because you have global technology. And you must not allow the machine to outrun your mind and your vision and your hope. There is a biblical story in the Christian religious tradition. John was put on the Isle of Patmos. He was pulled out in political oppression and sent there to die on this island. It was punishment. It was persecution. While on this island, left there to die, he could have given up easily. He could have said, I have no one to talk with. I have no telephone. I can't text message. There is no network communication. I'm put out here to die. Even in that disastrous, deplorable, isolated, meant to die situation, he had a vision. He said, I see a new heaven and a new earth, and the old one has passed away. He was able to dream beyond his predicament. And that's the beauty that we have as dreamers, whether you are poor and without resources,